Hello, everyone. Cold open. Nothing planned. This is the second time I've streamed live in a good long while on my channels. Let's verify we are actually alive. Oh, I am. Okay. Says I'm live. We will see on Rumble, YouTube. Let's check in with folks there. Do I have a chat function? This may have been a mistakey because for sure live on YouTube, not live on Rumble for some inexplicable reason. Let me pull up Rumble in another spot. All right, okay, no, I'm live. I am live in both spots. That is awesome. That is fantastic. Here we are, Giggles and Bits. We are live. This is my Wednesday stream where we will just discuss the discussing of things. I'm an Iowa guy, so I like to try and cover Iowa stuff because I feel like things kind of go under the radar a little bit here. We have several races, stuff that's very important as far as control of the Congress in both chambers. We will see how that's all going to flesh out. Ashley Henson is facing some pressure, although she is a little bit ahead. No real concerns with her. Zach Nunn, on the other hand, is probably getting the most pressure out of anybody. And there's just something about the guy. He's a bit of a fly on the wall. I don't know what it is. I've heard him speak, give interviews. He seems like a solid guy. He does get some things done, but in terms of moving the needle, the guy's just not really registering. He's not tipping the Richter scale. But the biggest race here in Iowa is the governor's race. Kim Reynolds is stepping down. She's not going to run again. Her husband, um, prayers to him. He's got cancer. He's getting treatments. I hope everything goes well with that. She's going to focus on the family. Nothing wrong with that at all. And we have a really right now seems sort of neck and neck. We have Zach Lane on the Republican ticket, came out of nowhere to beat Feenstra, probably the more well-known candidate. But Feenstra chose to, I don't know, he chose to not really run a campaign in the primary, and Zach Lane was um, sounded more like a Trump candidate than anybody else, and Zach Lane ended up coming out on top. He's he grew up in Iowa, left Iowa, had another family, or had a family, and he's moved back to Iowa. Has been here for several years, despite what the Rob Sand campaign will say. And he is a really solid candidate. My main concern is I don't really see momentum on his side with the media here in Iowa. And Rob Sand, on the other hand, seems to have a ton of momentum for inexplicable reasons, and I don't get it because Rob Sand's entire campaign is him doing pizza selfies, campaign vlogs during the workday. He doesn't have a great track record as the state's auditor. A lot of stuff has gone unaccounted for. We have a big scandal with one of our school districts allocating reallocating funds with zero permission. They haven't been turning in their audits for, I think, going on 3 years now. And it's the duty of the auditor to ensure that those audits are being done and that any malfeasance is being held accountable. That is not happening. And that is pretty par for the course for Rob Sand, who went unopposed in the Democrat primary. So he's a bit of an odd duck. He does say that he is willing to talk to media on that represent both sides. I hate saying that, represent both sides, but he's willing to talk to perceived uh, Republican and Democrat media um, folks. The issue I have with all of that is he is slimy as all get out. Absolutely slimy. In his interviews, he does a really good job of deflecting questions or reaffirming questions. When asked if he believes in, what he believes about gender identity, he flat out says that he believes there's multiple, genders outside of the two that uh, everybody, in reality understands. But Rob Sand recently, I don't know what it is with Democrats openly, who is it? James Tellerico? Democrats have this habit of comparing themselves to Jesus. That I think we should all strive to be, strive to build ourselves in the image and example that Jesus made for us, but we all also understand that we're representatives, not Jesus himself. So let's listen to this clip from Rob Sand and see if this plays out the way Lane HQ summarizes it. This would be a bit cold for me. Well, that is not playing. Oh lordy. Hold on, let me stop that and then try to reshare it. Oh yeah, system audio. That helps. That helps, Travis. You had this issue last week.
You can look them up right now at auditor.iowa.gov/town hall, and you can find out when I'm going to be in your county. This is public service. I want to represent everybody. And I was thinking about this the other day. Actually, I realized to me there's a piece of this that is very much faith-based. My faith is really important to me, and I worship a guy who made a point to spend time with the people that nobody else thought was worth spending time with. And that to me, too, is public.
It just seems all a bit misguided in how he views it, you know? I don't doubt his faith. I'm not going to call that into question, but I do feel like he's misappropriating it. to push to try and ingratiate himself in a group that he really hasn't, you know, approached in the past. It just seems a bit skeevy, you know. We got stuff like this, people posting personal experience. I spent 2 years in Iowa Senate parking directly across from Rob Sand's parking spot with nothing between us but air. Not once in that 2 years was his car parked there. Not once. We used his office for subcommittee meetings because it was always empty. I saw him in the Capitol wandering around maybe twice in that time. And folks, like that, like you can say that that's anecdotal, but the record is just that he he's just not there, you know. He's just not there. So my concern is that he's promising to legalize weed. He's promising to, you know, in recorded audio, not public, but in recorded audio, he um, says that Republicans are going to have to take their medicine. He has uh, he has what he calls open town halls, where he open town halls where he blocks Republicans from entering, because when you sign up, you know, when you sign in at the front desk, you identify what party you vote that you represent, and if you put down Republican, he'll block you out. It's gotten so bad that he doesn't allow anybody to record his town halls, but supposedly they're open, and you know, it's just it's all ridiculous, and he's not even original at all. So here I'm going to play a clip here. This was let's see, this is over 3 months ago. Let me get this set up for you guys. And let me show this real quick.
Iowa land belongs in Iowa hands always.
Paid for by Lane for Governor.
All right. Now let's watch the most recent Rob Sand ad.
I say we keep Iowa homes and land in Iowa hands. I say
Always.
Paid for by Lane for Governor.
Every every idea that Zach Lane comes up with, if it sounds good, Rob Sand will take it and he'll run an ad on it, even if Zach Lane's already run an ad on it. And we saw that on a larger scale with Kamala Harris during the presidential campaign. If it was polling well and registering well with people and Trump said it, suddenly Kamala Harris was saying it. You know, that be copying that. She only talks like that, by the way, around a certain group. That's another issue that Democrats have a problem with, is their accent changes. I don't understand why. But it's a pretty important race. Just want to make sure that people are talking about that. It's not the biggest news in the country right now. Probably the biggest news in the country is Fauci and his logs, his documentation, his you know, like to me it's like ship's logs. So when I was in the Navy, I was in charge of ship's logs. And so if we moved, I'd log it. We did a change, I'd log it. We came across something, I'd log it. Even in port, you somebody comes across, you log it. Captain comes or goes, you log it. So Fauci had a record that he kept, and everybody's calling it Fauci's diary. That I think that's intentional and makes it seem more private. Even Fauci in his opening statements makes it sound more private. Now let me pull up his let me pull up Fauci's statement here. We'll listen to this. Because even Fauci makes it sound like it's his personal diary. It's not. It's the records that he kept while he was in his position. Let's listen to this.
Over 200 times over those 38 years. During and after the COVID pandemic, I have appeared multiple times for hearings in the Senate and the House, usually under oath, and sat for several days-long transcribed sworn interviews, answering questions about the very issues that are now the subject of this hearing.
He's here in this hearing. He's in this hearing because he's already been in front of the hearing, or been in front of this he's already been called in front of Congress to give testimony to the actions that he took during COVID. Stuff that people were calling out. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little bit, in the very, very beginning, I was like, oh man, this guy Fauci, he's really something. Because you get the profiles, you get the hype, they're laying out who this individual is. But as time went on, the stuff that he was saying and recommending just wasn't making sense. The whole 6-foot rule. We were getting studies from simulations, not studies. We were getting simulations of what happens to a sneeze when a sneeze is emitted. Sneeze come out of your mouth between 40, 45 miles an hour, even higher if it's like intentionally like very violent sneeze. But that particulate aerosolizes. It's aerosolized spit and snot and everything else that's in there. It carries pretty far, and 6 foot is not that far. I knew it was BS because when I was in the Navy, we used to have folks were still allowed to smoke on a submarine, and you could smoke in the ventilation room where there's a bunch of filters, and the thought process was the smoke's going to go in there and it's going to get filtered and it's not going to be that bad. Well, come to find out, the carcinogens don't really filter out. They just get carried through the entire ship. So everybody's basically breathing in secondhand carcinogens. So the Navy did away with smoking on submarines, or at least they were in the process as I was getting out. They were pushing programs to help people kick the habit. So if it happens to a carcinogen, which I think is a little bit bigger than a virus particulate, aerosolized, vapor from your breath in a sneeze, it's going to carry through an entire supermarket. And it doesn't care if you're going one way or the other way in an aisle. It's going to get into that ventilation system. If it does get into that ventilation system, it could potentially get carried everywhere. That is the purpose of an aerosolized disease, is to move. So he's here because of the things that he said, the direction he pushed the country, the recommendations that he made. He's like, I did this for a reason. He's bragging about it. But then when things start to backfire, he's like, I didn't recommend that, blah, 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 blah. He backtracks on that, even though for the most part, we can tell he's lying because of his interviews. that he's given over the years because he's a bit of a fame whore. So he's been called back because now we have his records showing everything that he was saying behind the scenes, which is contradictory to what he was saying in front of the scenes. And then even in the hearing, the last hearing he was in, he was saying he didn't delete any records, but he gave direction to delete emails to create a fog of war with the information that he was privy to at different points.
However, given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution, his repeated slanderous comments about me, and recently his publicly releasing my unredacted personal diary aimed at,
again, not his personal diary. Those are records. That's his record for his position when he worked for the government, not his personal diary.
embarrassing and intimidating me. The only conclusion I can reach is that the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something, anything, that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars, unquote. Any reasonable person who has followed his unhinged obsession with me would readily come to the same conclusion. Therefore, although it pains me to do so, because...
All right. And this video ends right there. And then basically after that, he says he's going to be pleading the fifth. Rand Paul does a fantastic job. We're going to listen to some of these clips here. Let's see, what's a good one? That's a good one.
Connected to the pandemic. You could not hide that your agency had funded the Wuhan research or your long history of defending gain-of-function research. The only alternative left was to argue that COVID-19 did not originate in the Wuhan lab.
I'm pausing this right now. Rand Paul is fantastic here. I'm pretty sure that lady back there is there for a reason.
You were not a detached observer. You had an institutional interest in the public believing that federally funded...
Like Mars attacks, like I see somebody that looks like that, I immediately think Martian.
Research had nothing to do with the pandemic. It was a conflict of interest from the very beginning. The authors of the proximal origin of SARS-CoV-2 privately had serious doubts about a natural origin. Within days, though, they flipped, and they all wrote in proximal origin that the virus was almost certainly not a laboratory construct. That paper was then used by the government and the media and you to discredit Americans who were asking the same questions that you and the authors were asking yourselves privately. You even cited proximal origin from the White House podium. You held it out as evidence that the virus could not have been engineered, but you didn't.
Yeah, that's a huge key point right there. Like when everything started happening, the way I remember it is initially people were pointing the finger at the Wuhan Viral Institute. And then all of a sudden the narrative started shifting from official angles that it was the wet market. It was the wet market. It was probably bat soup, something like that. This was something that became a natural evolution of the COVID virus. And it just swept through the market. Meanwhile, we had a defector that was involved with Wuhan Institute. Ooh, what is her name? What is that lady's name? I need to look that up now. I'm going to look that up. Let's finish this, and I will look up that lady's name.
Disclose your role in the discussions that preceded the writing of the paper. You did not disclose the author's original concerns. You did not reveal that you had been part of the paper, that you had read and offered editorial comments on the paper before it was published, before you began using it as evidence that it couldn't have originated in the lab. You did not disclose that you had immediately investigated yourself whether NIAID funding might be connected to the research. You did not tell the American people the full story. Duly released private messages indicate that the doubts with the authors and others didn't disappear after the publication. So while this was being waived at the White House to show that it couldn't come from the lab, the authors were still privately continuing to assign a meaningful probability to a laboratory origin.
Yeah. Basically setting up and pointing out the inconsistencies with their stories and then their push. And this is the issue with searching on Google is I cannot find the name of that female Chinese scientist, virologist, that said that. Let me see if I can find it using a different search engine, because she said there were multiple markers to show that it wasn't a natural evolution and that it was clearly engineered with specific traits. Because there's no way that the virus could have gone from what it was in previous samples to COVID-19. See if Brave gives me a different. Let's see. Yeah, that's her name. Dr. Yan. Li Meng Yan. That's who it was. You know what? That's so crazy, man. Literally, Google search, I couldn't find the friggin' lady. So yeah, she was one of the first ones to come out. And what was it? It was September 12th, 2020. So even with, it had already been going, but she had already started to sound the alarms that it was, and Fauci just refused to give in on that. So Fauci, through the rest of the hearing today, 111 times gave this statement, essentially.
Have for the legislative branch of government and my decades-long record of cooperating with Congress, under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're not going to get any answers on the record. I didn't think so. If you listen to Clay and Buck, Clay didn't think so. It's just, it was never going to happen. And that's essentially what transpired the rest of the day. Now, to create a scene, One of Anthony Fauci's lawyers uh, was disrupting the hearing. He wasn't recognized as a potential witness. He's constantly stepping in. He was shouting, and Rand Paul ended up removing him, which led to claps from people in the gallery. Um, yeah, it wasn't a great day for Mr. Fauci. Um, it was a great day. Um, if you like seeing people squirm, he's not going to be held accountable. I mean, they might, hold him in contempt. He may face, I don't know, a few months, but he deserves to be in jail for a very long time. For a very long time. This was a pretty powerful moment in the hearing. Um, Senator Bernie Moreno asked folks to stand up if they had been hurt or knew somebody that had been hurt by the vaccine.
Catastrophically stupid, and that you thought that during these times saying these things made you somehow a lesser human being. Dr. Fauci, can you just turn around and look at the people behind you? You're not willing to do that? That's not a question. It's not a question. To your lawyer, it's not a question. It's a request.
What a scumbag.
All you have to do is look up from your lawyers and look at the people who were absolutely shamed for saying what we know now to be the truth. You can't even look at them? That's a question. Are you able to look at them? You can sit down in the audience.
Oh, I'm sorry. Those are people that in the media or on social media spoke out against the misinformation that Fauci and essentially strong armed those people, shamed them for reporting accurately about what was happening with COVID. It's mortality rates. It's who was affected. Like young children were affected because their immune systems hadn't built up enough yet. The elderly were affected because their immune systems have been worn down. Those that had secondary issues, type 2 diabetes, like myself, were at possible threat. My diabetes, my sugars are pretty well controlled. So when I got COVID, it felt a little heavy in my chest, and it was done and over. I was actually scheduled to get remdesivir, but I felt so good. It took 4 days before I was scheduled to get the shot, and I felt so good by day 3 that when I actually showed up to get the remdesivir, they called me and said, "Hey, we're ready to see you." And I was like, "Actually, I don't think I need it. Give it to somebody else." And I left. I never got the shot. I never got the vaccine either. But I had followed the studies. I'd followed the reports for each of the 3 potential vaccines as they were being developed. They were giving reports. They were putting out data. And based on what we were seeing, it sounded promising. In the 20 to 30 age group folks that were in that massive test, those are the ones that seemed to have the most adverse effects, and it was usually isolated to the area of the injection. And they were working on mitigating that. But it worked well for the elderly. They weren't really testing it on kids. They were testing on pregnant women. But they weren't reporting on what the results were. So no news is good news is typically how people approach things. That's how I kind of approached it. I thought we were getting the information. Come to find out years later, they were omitting information. Now, my wife has asthma. So I was concerned about her, especially concerned about her because she was pregnant with our first. She got the first shot. And our daughter miscarried inexplicably in the 38th week. Like we literally had our 38-week checkup and she was gone just instantly. No warning, no nothing. We never found out what it was. But I can't help. I can't say that it was the shot because I don't know. Autopsy was inconclusive. We don't know. But I can't help but wonder if that's what it was. Now, if they reported everything legitimately from that testing, from that bevy of testing, that mass, just absolute numbers, just crunching and crushing the time frame that it takes to get legitimate information. If they had accounted for everything as opposed to eliminating any sort of outlier, because even though you're doing a test with 1,000 people, if you've got 20 people coming down with something, that's an issue. If you got more than that, if you got specific groups that are having issues, that's a problem. You have to isolate that. You can't just say, the majority of people are having no adverse effects. We're ready to get this out. I still think that type of testing for new vaccine is incredible. But it's only incredible if you're being honest about what you're reporting, what you're finding, and you're tracking. Just crazy. Just crazy. Well, I don't want to leave on such a sour and dour note. I do want to pull up some some funny videos that I saw throughout the day. I thought this was pretty funny.
The Mac, but sometimes I get ridiculous. I'll eat up all your crackers and your licorice. Oh, yo, fat girl, come here. Are you ticklish? Yeah, I come.
I don't want to play too much of that and get struck. That was funny. And I saw this video. Definitely want to be careful, folks. It went up his shorts. No. Oh my goodness. Gain of Fauci, great follow. If you haven't seen them, check them out. Breaking Biden surprised to learn he pardoned Fauci while watching the Senate hearing. And then I don't know if you guys have ever seen this joke. Freaking awesome. This is Bob Saget on the Norm Macdonald show. Rest in peace to both of them. Bob Saget's talking about a time that he had seen Frank Sinatra at a bar, and he wanted to go up and say hi to him, but he wanted to be sensitive about it because Frank had just lost his son.
And I was 22, and I walked in there and he had lost his son, and he was sitting there and he was having a martini, and I just walked over and I just kind of stood there. I didn't want to bother him. And he was just sitting there and he looked up and he was nice, and I just went,
I found your son.
That's one of my favorite things. Anyways, guys, that's all I'm going to do for tonight. I like to keep this short, cover the important stuff. Oh, man. Have a little levity. Anyways, folks, y'all have a great night. Have a wonderful Wednesday. We'll be in August soon. And it'll be hot. So stay hydrated. Be weather aware. Storms pop up at different times. But keep on your toes. The world is... If you keep your world small, there's a lot of brightness and happiness to be found. It's easy to get lost in just the overall, like, tumultuous, chaotic nature that the entire world brings when you have such a massive worldview. Sometimes we're meant to know, sometimes we're not meant to know. If it feels overwhelming, you're just not meant to know. But take care, adios, and have a great week and weekend. Hopefully, I'll be seeing you next week on Wednesday. Hopefully, you check out Jacob Ironside in our popcorn chat. We'll be covering X-Files next Tuesday. So we're in season 3. That's a great channel. It's really fun, especially if you like the older movies, or you're just curious about something older to check out and watch that's just adorable, like Harvey with Jimmy Stewart, 1950. Check out that channel. Check out that stream. It really is a nice blast of the past. But otherwise,